All right, for the first time in 3 weeks, it is Mike Giardi Monday, and for the first time ever on this show, I am at the Boston Herald's Andrew Callahan. I am tonight just another guy in his mom's basement talking about, writing about sports, mother-in-laws, to be clear. With that, we, of course, welcome everybody back to the Pats Interference Podcast, proud member of the arresting, articulate, animated, and astronomically good-looking CLNS Media Network, which is funny because I look like shit. And I know that I'm not sure my beard in like 2.5 weeks. My hair atop my head has been longer since I shaved it in the first place in 2020. And I can barely keep my eyes open, but I am genuinely thrilled to be back, to be watching some film, to talk some real football, even if, Mike, I think everything that everyone's talking about now has nothing to do with, the Patriots won in Cincinnati. It's the guys that they lost. What have you been talking about? What have you been thinking about today?
Yeah, I mean, so I think from hearing from Mike Vrabel and sort of getting the reports that Will Campbell doesn't appear to be a season-ending injury, I think it, lightened the mood a little bit because, as I've said numerous times, I think of the positions that you couldn't replace that aren't including the quarterback, because as we all know, if you lose your star quarterback, you're screwed. Will Campbell was one of the 2 or 3 guys I felt like they just couldn't lose, and that's not to say Will Campbell's been an all-pro at left tackle. It just he's raised a level of play there, and there's a consistency where you don't worry about it too much over there. And even if he gets beat, he's had this ability to sort of rebound and play better. Go back to the Jets game on Thursday night 2 weeks ago, where I thought the first half he did not play good football. In the second half, he was kind of a beast. So that's the thing that I said, oh boy, if you lose that guy, we've lived the Vidarian Lowe experience, or do you try to shuffle around the offensive line? Like, well, how would you play it? And just getting that news, I think, again, we don't have a timetable on it. We don't know if he's going to come back and be the same player if he does come back this year, but just sort of that vibe made it feel a little bit better after what we watched yesterday.
So I used to do a segment before I found a friend to do these Monday night episodes where I'd recap all of the film, and it was called What Would NFL Film Say? And the premise was, if this particular game that I just broke down all the notes and I got all the film and all the success rates, like how would the documentary crew looking at this season and documenting game by game, how would they frame it in the course of the season? Inspired by a VHS I had in 1996 of the 1995 Patriots, who went 6-10, but to me were the most enthralling thing I'd ever seen on a television screen. And when I think about what would NFL Film say about this game, again, you'd get the highlights and Marcus Jones pick 6, and that's cool. But it is very much the sense of what I watched basically right here, again, in my mother-in-law's basement, because I didn't go to Cincinnati to care for my newborn daughter. Mike Vrabel not smiling in his press conference. Mm-hmm. In fact, being a little snippy, which, by the way, Mike, when we talk about everyone talking about injuries, I don't want to go Walter White here. Just say my name. I was the guy. I asked you a lot about it. I wrote about it. Yeah. Doug Hyde asked about our guy, the offensive line and the continuity, but that's not everybody. I jinxed you. I also jinxed him saying they should win big in Cincinnati in this last episode. Anyway, it was the sense, though, of Drake almost being broken up on top of Vrabel's, whatever press conference. And the sense of you don't know what you have until it's gone. And it's not that Will Campbell and Jared Wilson are definitely gone, because, Rappaport says 4 to 6 weeks with the high ankle sprain, which I always caution is really a twisting of your lower leg bones. Yeah. Probably think more 6 to 7. But even just the threat of losing them, because you're absolutely right. Will Campbell on your list of irreplaceable players is behind Drake May, and there's not a big gap if there's a gap at all. That's how good this team is. And the pain of that being taken away is totally tied to the possibility of their Super Bowl hopes, which is what I wrote about afterwards. So that whole dynamic, it's unfortunate I can't say what it was like there, but that was my impression watching afterward, is guys who had won a football game and afterward looked like they had lost part of their season and part of their team, because they did.
Yeah, and I think you saw some of the quotes that came out of there. Everybody's probably seen the Drake May. I love those guys. And there was a pause, and I love those guys again. And sort of clearly they felt like in that moment that there was a chance that Will Campbell wasn't going to be back. And there was a chance that the Wilson injury you're very good to you to point that out about the 4 to 6. And it's, that's why Mike Vrabel doesn't like to put timetables on these things, right? We went through the hamstring thing with Christian Gonzalez. You just never know how one person's body is going to react. One little setback. Maybe the guy's just mentally he has to be at 100% or something close to it for him to operate. You don't know any of those things, especially about these 2 kids on the left side. We're still getting to know them. They've been here since the end of April. and they've only played 12 games here. Well, Wilson missed one, but you get my point. So yeah, it's interesting, and I'm just kind of like the comments from like stuff that I wrote, and that now as we do the show live, it's like, oh well, they dodged a bullet. Well, yeah, they dodged a bullet that it's not a torn ACL. We think, right? Like that's great. Now you don't have to worry about off-season the surgery and the rehab, and then cutting into next season. But what's he going to be like when he comes back? If he comes back this year on the MCL, like one of his best strengths, Will Campbell, is what? He's a great athlete. He tested off the charts, and you've seen that at times this year when, he gives up the arm length or there's certain things but his feet move really well. So if the knee's not operating 100%, what sort of impact does that have in January when you're playing the best teams, which this year, through no fault of their own, they haven't had to play too many of those best teams.
So the idea of dodging a bullet makes me smile. And to be gruesome for a second, they didn't dodge the bullet. It just didn't hit them right in the heart. Like
yeah,
you nick your liver, it's still not good. This is still somewhere between just a flesh wound and the end of the Black Knight. Shout out Monty Python. Which is to say, again, I think you're spot on because it's not all sunshine and roses that you just suddenly aren't ruling these guys out for the season. And look, that is a good thing. I tweeted it today. It is terrific news that there's a possibility they could return here today. But there is the question, as you just said, okay, what do they look like when they come back? We saw Christian Gonzalez wasn't exactly the same guy, granted a different injury. But also at that time, is it the first round of the playoffs when you don't have any time to knock some rust off? Is it the last game of the season? And before you get there, you host Buffalo, you go to Baltimore. How do those games go now that you've got two backups protecting Drake May's blind side, and Drake May coming off of a game, which we'll get to here in a second, he didn't look great. So they're still afloat. Like this is not starting the podcast and the doom and gloom because neither of us like to do that, want to do that. We want to talk football here. But we got to hang somewhere in between of everything's okay and it's fine. They're not lost for the season. It's great versus the season's over. Because that's where the Patriots are. That's what they're trying to deal with and just kind of get by for the next 5 games in 6 weeks.
I think you've felt that from Vrabel. Let's not forget that it was just a couple weeks ago or whatever it was, a month ago now. Everything's blurring together. But don't let them take the joy from you. Doesn't matter. We won. You should celebrate that. It's hard to win in this league. And then we get Mike Vrabel after the game on Sunday, and it's like,
I know,
not all enthused. And I get it.
I get it too.
You built something that you had a lot of pride in, that you have a lot of pride in, that as we keep talking about has exceeded expectations. And now you're here and it's like, look around, we have a chance. This is real. And to have that happen the way it did, I mean, it's the league, as they all talk about. This is what happens in the league. 100% injury rate guarantee if you play football long enough. But man, you'd sort of gotten by so often this year and that guy looks like he's really hurt. And then he's, 3 plays later, he's back out there. This was something different.
So real quick, we'll just give the official quote from Vrabel, who said Campbell still might go on IR. Will Campbell with this apparent MCL injury. It's definitely a knee. But quote, it's nothing that's going to hopefully put him out for the entire season. So hopefully does a lot of heavy lifting there. We'll see. We'll wait. He said Jared Wilson too soon to tell. Again, reported 4 to 6 weeks with a high ankle sprain. But you always get that. And I almost included this in my column last night, which was entitled, how much damage did the Patriots Super Bowl hopes take? I said, look, the news will leak whenever they choose their insider of choice to hand it out, and the news will be bad. And I deleted the part of there's going to be a rosy tint to it, though, which is sometimes pressure from the team. And this is the dirty side of the league sometimes of the player hears this report of, oh, you really should be back in 4 weeks, and then feels the pressure to kind of push themselves. When in reality, high ankle sprains are different. Kyle Duggar played on one all of last year and is still not right. And that's partly why he's not here. Anyway, to answer my own question in that column, because I didn't really honestly land on an answer then. It's just to say they took damage to those hits. This game, they won. They have the best record in the NFL, 10-2. They're number 1 in the AFC. Did winning or the injuries, though, factor more into how you feel about their potential to make the Super Bowl, which is real and it's there? Was this good, bad, neutral for that dream?
Yeah, I think it took a little hit because, again, as we just talked about, if those players come back and they're not the same player that you had prior to the injury, then that affects the overall, let's call it the talent of the team, right? So to me, that's really important. I also found it interesting, and I don't know how you felt about it, but sort of Vrabel talking about the idea of, we have to do a better job of moving on from good plays or bad plays. And he talked a lot about preparation during the course of the week. And I wonder if maybe he felt like heading into this game that maybe this wasn't their best week of practice. And maybe guys, I don't know. This is just me reading and speculating into it. Maybe guys started feeling themselves a little bit like, oh, we're 9-2. Like there's a lot ahead for us. And maybe he looks at that and says, I don't know if we were as great on our details as we need to be, because guys, the talent in the league is fairly equal. And you're not so far more talented than everybody else that you can afford to overlook those things. And the games that you are winning in the margins, you might lose in the margins now because of it. So I am curious about sort of when we get back in the locker room on Wednesday, sort of what the vibe is and maybe what the message that has been sent to the players.
Yeah, I think they'll probably have righted the ship then. And we'll see, emotionally, right? Because Vrabel calling himself out, part of that is like, you have to, as a leader, be the first person to take the step towards the thing that you're asking for, that you're chasing. So if you're just sitting back and be like, hey, you guys all have to turn the page. If you're not there out in front of it or doing it yourself, your words don't carry any water, any weight. But Vrabel's saying that right after Will Campbell, who I have joked, and will do so again, is his love child from Louisiana that he's never had, because of how much Mike Vrabel loves Will Campbell and how similar they are. It was very interesting to me that quote followed this nugget from Mike Reese. Shout out our pal. That Mike Vrabel was not immediately outside the locker room greeting everybody after the game. And his theory was, or he suggested, Mike didn't report this, is that maybe Mike Vrabel was going to check on Will Campbell, which is totally understandable. But if he's lost someone he's close with personally and loves as a player and as a draft pick and is the first pick of his entire era here, that means Mike Vrabel emotionally has to turn around, not just for the team's sake and what he's telling them, but because it's going to help him do his job at a point where I can tell you this definitively. The Patriots know and feel that they're tired, and now that they're banged up, and they need this bye badly. So they know where they are and how they feel. And that's not me looking at this team. That is people within the team telling that to me. So that's just what it is. Do you have any short-term solutions off the top of your head? Let's say we get Josh McDaniels on the phone and go, hey, just take it easy. It's Thanksgiving. Yeah. We got you. This is what you need to do Monday night against the Giants.
I'm rolling with the lineup that they finished with yesterday. Vidarian Lowe's my left tackle, Ben Brown's my left guard, and I'm leaving the middle and the right side. I've heard a lot of people, Morgan Moses has played some left tackle.
No.
You don't start moving pieces. And this is something Belichick used to talk about all the time when people would make suggestions. They'd be like, I'm not going to weaken a position that I'm already comfortable with to move that guy to some different position and then insert another new guy. So now what have I done? I mean, in theory, if everything works out, great, we're humming. But there's the real chance that you just weaken two positions instead of one. So yeah, I'm doing what you saw yesterday, Andrew, and I'm sure you saw back and you watched the tape. Like, all right, but Aaron, you're going to get a little chip help. You're going to get that. We're going to do some different things to try to help you out. And now it's incumbent upon the other guys to do their job. And maybe Morgan Moses, who's gotten a fair amount of help this year, at times, maybe you get a little less of that going forward, because the guy on the left is a question mark until he proves otherwise.
I think I'd go a little tempo. We saw this in the second half, right? We're going to go into like what everyone missed from the film on offense and defense and, studs and duds. And we got dad pod and all this good stuff. I thought they'd go tempo more and earlier this season. And I understand there are a lot of moving parts and it's a new system, but I think when you can kind of put that stress on the defense and dictate terms, granted, you do need to sustain the drive. So if you hurry up and speed into a 3-and-out, it's like driving into a dead end. Cool. Like you got there very quickly, but you went nowhere. It doesn't have the same effect. I just trust Drake May now at the controls of this offense to go faster. And with a pass rush like the Giants that you need to neutralize, not just with chips or double teams or help or running at them. And they can't run, by the way. I thought they would go wild over Cincinnati. It didn't happen. I think you need to go tempo to tire them out a little bit. And that'll help with the quick release and the quick passing game. It's just one small thing, and they'll figure it out. They got an extra day this week. If you count Thanksgiving, maybe you don't. I don't know. But that's something I would look at. And you're right. The personnel can't change. Like that's just who you have.
Yeah. I mean, the only thing I would say about the tempo is, especially in this first game back or first game with Vidarian and Ben side by side, I just wonder about the communication levels of that. You're operating quickly. I don't know. Is it better to be in the huddle and so you have 30 seconds to process this, that we're telling you what you got to do, and then you get to the line and there's calls made and et cetera? Or right to the line. Let's go. Let's move. That would be my one concern. But again, like I said, maybe that's just a 1 week thing. And if you know that this is going to be your lineup for the next 4 to 6 weeks, then that's something that you can incorporate because you start to feel more and more comfortable, you hope, with the communication between those two guys and the rest of the line.
Yeah. Okay. If the Patriots are going to take some time this week to figure that out and they want a break, I got a suggestion for that. And this doesn't have to be anything more serious than tempo, but we're all going to kick back on Thanksgiving and I'm going to eat some turkey and I'll play some PrizePicks. Because PrizePicks is the best and easiest way to win cash while you're watching sports. And the people with the Patriots, granted, this might violate certain policies, but hear me out. If you're watching Cowboys Chiefs, if you're watching Packers Lions, and you think a certain player is going to do this, so they're going to do that, or Joe Burrow's going to stink, as he always does in his first game back against the Ravens in the nightcap, go to PrizePicks, where every player comes with a stat. All you have to do is pick more or you pick less. And that's it. And you build a lineup of 2 to 6 players where you can change the number sometimes, by the way. You don't have to go with what they give you initially. You can bring it higher or lower, and then you pick more than or less than and lock that in. Mike and I do this to spice up boring Celtics games on Tuesday. Celtics are hot, though. Big thumbs up. I do this now that I'm watching the NBA at 1 a.m. with my newborn, and it keeps me going because I like winning money while I watch sports. So you should do this too, but only at PrizePicks. And if you download the PrizePicks app today, here's the best part. Use code CLNS. You got $50, 50, in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineup after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. All right. I was technically right that the Patriots would win. I was wrong that they would win big, though I would really love for them just to, punch it. Maybe the first time, maybe the second time, third time, fourth, fifth time at least on the 1 yard line. They did not. So this was a close game. Red zone efficiency is one of our 5 factors we go over every week. Here are the 5. Red zone efficiency, 0 for 2 for the Patriots. Bengals, 1 of 1. Turnovers, 1 apiece, a wash. Explosive play rate, 10.4% for the Patriots, 3.2% for the Bengals. Success rate, this was a wash too, 47%, 46% in favor of the Pats. And the defensive pressure rate, very similar, about 32 to 31%, Patriots and Bengals. So this game came down to who's finishing drives better. The Bengals did that. And then you had the explosive play rate of who could catch up fastest, which was, of course, the Patriots. Anything outside of that big picture before we get into Drake that kind of stuck out about how the Patriots operated and what they did or didn't do against a team that obviously was worse than them and lost its 4 best players, Burrow, Chase, Hendrickson, and then T. Higgins, but still hung around and was 26 yards away from a big upset?
Andrew, I said before the game, whatever, tweeted it on like a Thursday. I'm like, this legitimately is the worst defense that I can recall seeing. And so, the DVOA backed that up. And so people are like, oh, you just, no. I like to watch. I'm watching the games and I'm going, I can't get over. And I said it, they don't rush the passer. They don't tackle. They don't cover aside from DJ Turner. I'm like, and a lot of times they don't play with great effort. I'm like, it's like, what do you do? So I was with you. I thought like, hey, even if Burrow came back and somehow threw up a 30 spot on you, you were going to score 38. If he's put up 35, you were going to score 42. Like, that's just how I viewed this game. And quite frankly, they could have, had they had any sort of efficiency in the red zone and not just shot themselves in the foot repeatedly down there. But like, I was actually debating with our good friend Mike Reese. He's like, well, that defense, they played pretty well the week before. I'm like, Mike, that defense stinks. That defense still stinks. I'm like, you did more than they did to you. And not that they didn't do a couple things, as Drake said, they caught us a few times, but like by and large, this was more about you than it was about what they did. And I guess maybe that's part of it where you feel good again, where you say like, hey man, just we clean up a few things and we put 40 up on them like that.
Couldn't agree more. I joked sometime last week somewhere on the radio that as I was watching the Bengals, just to familiarize myself, like not even intensive film study, just their last couple of games. What does it look like? What does it feel like? What do they do? I shielded my newborn. I was like, don't watch this anymore. I stopped after a game and a half. I was like, this is disgusting. This is horrible because it's not even just the effort. How about just like the angles, like the fundamental stuff that you brought in a good high school coach would be like, you need to clean up X, Y, and Z, which is no disrespect to the high school coaches because very often they're better teachers than guys you have in the NFL. But the point is, it was shocking that they scored 7 points fewer than the Bengals have been allowing on average, and you were a top 10 offense. Now, Drake May starting the way he did, where it looked like he had a Skyline Chili coma for the first quarter.
You look like he had food poisoning. Forget about the coma.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe he was up late with Jack Westover watching Washington football, mop the floor with UCLA. I was. But the point is, like, I thought there was a body double there for a second because of how bad those first few drives were. Now, granted, he got over that. He got better. Everyone is entitled to a bad start. It's a long season. He's 23. But that played a big role in that. I think you get a little bit of juice if you're Cincinnati going, there's a punt. A pick six. That's exactly what you need for an upset.
Yeah, so we've seen at various points this year, for as good as he's been, a series here or a series there where he looks a little rushed, or he looks a little off. That was a quarter and change of that. Even the drive that they ended up scoring their first touchdown on was a little bit of a roller coaster until the very end in terms of how he performed on the drive and some of the throws that he made and scrambling and fumbling the football. And luckily it bounced back into his arms. I don't know. I can't tell you. I mean, he talked about sometimes just like, you just got to let it rip. Maybe he was thinking too much. He did try what appeared to be a no-look pass to Trevion Henderson. Let's not do that again, please.
Nope.
That is speaking of which, as I talked about earlier, the ultimate in sort of like feeling yourself, that's feeling yourself. Well, maybe keep your hands above the waistline. You know what I'm saying? Let's not do that. So, it was a rough start, but much as we've seen this year with him over and over again is that he has the ability, and he has done it. If he gets into a little bit of a valley, and there hasn't been one like this since the opener, unless you want to talk about the 2 turnover game against Pittsburgh.
There it is.
Down 21-57, where he pulls himself out of it, and he did. He made some terrific throws again. Again, not a great performance, but enough.
And it was telling too that, those first 3 drives happened, and that interception, I mean, there's a lot going on because they had played with an unbalanced line, and Ben Brown has split out outside the numbers. And you're like, did Ben Brown sip from the wrong Gatorade jug and some fan handed him a beer? No, like Josh McDaniels is trying to really displace this defense, which, by the way, he hit over the head again and again and again with play action, their highest rate of the season at 46%. But on that pick, it was really just designed to open up the middle, and down the seam goes Hunter Henry. We'll get back to the seam in a second, but he just airmails it. So the drive after that, after all these, hurried throws and poor throws, McDaniels goes very basic. Like it's Stephon Diggs in a snag route. You get this 2-man play action concept that Matt Collins hit against Tennessee for a big gain. Airmails that to a near pick. And it's not till third down when Drake does what Drake does and just scramble against, I believe, man coverage, gets 6 yards on a 3rd and 4, 5 yards on a 3rd and 4. And then he settles in. Because then it's play action for 5. You get a check down, a run, an in cut for 12, and then you have the 28-yarder to Hunter Henry, which was under pressure. And that throw told me, okay, he's good. Because that stuff, again, has been the most impressive part of his development to me. Is it's not the degree to last year where he's under pressure, because he's invited a lot of this himself, and there's a little bit more control in that kind of chaos when you invite the rushers or you extend the play. But he's been under pressure more than most quarterbacks in the league and is still an MVP candidate. Once he made that throw, you knew he was fine. And when they play as much cover 1 and cover 3 as Cincinnati did, he just goes back to the seams. And even against cover 2 in that throw to Pop Douglas, which was an oh my God throw in the third quarter.
Yeah, and that's the thing about him. Again, there's a mental aspect to this, and there's a mental toughness to him. The physical toughness we've seen. He'll stand in there and he'll take these hits. We complain about it from time to time about taking too many, but there's the mental side of this too, where I think very impressive for a young quarterback to sort of have that mindset. Because I think, God knows, Andrew, we've watched a lot of bad quarterback play from this team in recent years. And then from the teams that they played when they were really rolling at I've seen it from the beginning to the end covering it, but like that second half of the dynasty where how many quarterbacks did they break? And you could see like the moment Zach Wilson, who's really physically gifted, like made a throw or two that was poor and they took advantage of. Sam Darnold, I'm seeing ghosts. Like they just, boom, it's over. It's done. Like you might as well just send them home. You put them in a body bag already. It's over. And Drake has this ability and has shown this ability to sort of like, okay, that sucked, but short memory. Let's go back out there again. Let's rip it. And, I trust myself and I trust what's happening around me that it's going to work. And it has worked quite a bit this year.
Do you think Devin Our guy Devin McCourty sends Zach Wilson gift baskets around this time of year. Just thank you for all those interceptions that he got just buying the deepest guy on the field. It was always week 2, those first couple of seasons, or week 3 or whatever it was. And he's just, yep, thank you. Like Devin was a vacuum back there for all the bad Zach Wilson throws, especially at the end.
Oh, Zach Wilson. My good friend Will Parkinson. I tried to convince himself that Zach Wilson could be the guy.
No.
He was, you have to, it's the young guys. You got to counsel him. You put your arm around him sometimes. Like, kid, it'll get better one day. I don't know when that day's coming, but it'll get better.
I legitimately think Zach Wilson was responsible for like half the interceptions that Devin had since their last Super Bowl appearance. I need to look that up. But at least since he entered the league, 21 and 22. That 22 is Devin's last year. We'll get IT on it. I've got some different numbers for you, though.
Sure.
Because I know you missed these. So Cincinnati plays man coverage on 40%, 40, of Drake May's passing snaps. That's the highest rate he's seen since, do you remember the team?
Atlanta?
Cleveland.
Oh,
I thought Atlanta would play it a lot more because
Yes.
they do play a good amount of man, but they did not. It was a lot of match zone, and we're going to rush 5 and kind of keep you off schedule, which didn't work in the first half, but did in the second. Anyway, I remember watching that Cleveland tape and talking with you about maybe there's something here because man coverage, if you can play it, is still the best coverage in ball. And that goes when Bill Belichick was facing Tom Brady, and it goes for when he was facing Patrick Mahomes because it forces tight window throws and simplifies things defensively where it's just there's not going to be many busts. I mean, you can have some switching concepts and different man match or whatever. But the point is, Drake May took 5 sacks. He had a low completion percentage. I go, maybe there's something here. And there's one Myles Garrett. So I tweet out, here are the numbers. Maybe there's something here. I'd expect to see more of this because Drake May is a pick your poison quarterback. And thank God I have made a habit now this season of hitting mute on every single tweet that I send. Because if I want to go back and see what happens, I can go back. But if not, my phone is just not polluted with all of these things that I don't ask for. But that tweet got to the point where people were really insistent on saying, I'm going to quote tweet this and someone else replies, where they want to know, they want to tell everyone else how much they think you're an idiot. I go, okay, all right, that's fine. Like, I understand why he's number 1 in EPA. I think we should contextualize those stats against man coverage because bad teams who played man coverage played bad man coverage, but we'll see. So Cincinnati, to bring it back here, and this is not a victory lap because we still have a lot of season to go and good defenses, plays 40% of their snaps with man coverage. You know what the most catches versus man coverage for the Patriots? Out of the 7 completions May had?
Ramondre Stevenson.
Hunter Henry. He had 4 of the 7. Stephon Diggs had 1. Booty had 1. And it might have been Stevenson. I don't think it was Stevenson. But the point is, no, Matt Collins had the last one for 24 yards. It's not as much about Drake May, and this is the kryptonite, because there is none for that kid. Let's be clear. It's the idea that if I'm trying to match up with this offense, and Josh has a lot of different answers for man coverage, but at some point you got to get open, and that's on you. If you feel good about an answer for Diggs, you probably feel good about everybody else too if you're one of these defenses, because Diggs had 2 catches total versus DJ Turner.
Yep.
And you can throw it out to Matt Collins, and I would too. But if you have a good contained rush and man-to-man coverage, there's something here that from the worst defense you and I have ever seen that I'm shielding family members from watching with me because it's bad for their health. I'm curious if teams with better personnel and better coaching go, there's stuff here that we might copy and paste later and put to better use if we've got the horses.
Yeah, and that becomes the big thing. So I guess people at home who are watching this podcast and are really into this sort of stuff should now go and look at the AFC playoff picture and look at some of the teams that you think are going to be there and say, could Denver be that team? Surtain is healthy. Yes, they'd like to play man. They blitz. They do a lot of different things there. They're gonna play a heavy load of that. If Baltimore gets there, is that something that they would try to embrace in that moment? I think that's what you have to do now as you sort of look ahead. Like, this has been the better way to play this team, and teams have had better success. Again, they're not winning these games, but they're having better success in slowing you down. And I would just go back, like you said, this isn't the Drake May thing. This is, for as good as the receiver room has been this year, for as important as Stephon Diggs has been to this room and this team this year, there is still that element of they don't really have that guy. They have a bunch of guys who've turned into good football players, or guys like Diggs who've been great football players and are still very good football players who this is not necessarily their bag. So, like that's part of it. We had the conversation, and I'm sure we'll have it in the offseason. do they need to add X, Y, and Z? Like, there'll be reasons why you say like that's still probably pretty high up on the list of things you want to do.
Was that pun on purpose? X, Y, and Z?
I would like to take credit for that, but that's just pure fatigue, and just I rolled into that one.
That was you wanting to jump into dad pod already, because now I can tell all the bad jokes and no one can get mad at me. Though you still will. As we text with Reese just to loop him in so he can pile on. Yeah, look, again, I don't want to make a big deal out of the man coverage. It's just to say that the Browns held the Patriots to 9 points through that first half. And it took some turnovers and some big plays, which they made in a long May scramble, which is the biggest antidote, where he goes, fine, you want to turn your back to me? To me? I run 4.6? Cool, thank you. Right. It's about that contained rush, but teams are getting better at that against May. So it's just something to file away, because we've seen it now a few times work better than most teams.
And you're not making a big deal out of it. You're just, I say this all the time, and I do it whether they're good or bad, but like you're there are things that you have to look at big picture wise and say, like, if this is a good football team, this is a team that has real aspirations to do something, what are the things that might be a problem for them when the games matter the most? That's all.
Yeah. The Colts too, creative with their pressures. I mean, they've got a very average defense, but Sauce Gardner now changes their calculation in terms of how much man versus zone that they want to play. And there's tons of different zones, and we can just kind of leave that where it is. You mentioned big picture. Let's run through the offense. So Josh, as I said, the main tenet of this plan was we are going to displace an undisciplined defense. And once we found out that they're going to play a lot of single high, you're attacking the seams. But again, 43.6% of all of Drake's dropbacks were preceded by a play fake. About half their snaps were at 11 personnel. They're still going with Henry and Hooper, who this was statistical oddity. The Patriots had a very low success rate, 36% from that 12 personnel grouping, but a higher EPA per play, meaning when they hit on those plays from that grouping, they hit big, but they were much steadier, 54% success rate from 11 personnel. Not so great when they went bulk, 0% in jumbo, 22%, forget about it. 10 personnel, Josh gave me one snap, thank you. I was asking for those short-term wrinkles against the Jets. Keep them. Yeah. Don't forget them. This is not a one-time deal just to get away because Austin Hooper's hurt before a Thursday night game. It didn't work because that was the QB hit that he took on a stunt that Ben Brown gave up on that first drive and ended whatever. They went run heavy on first down. Again, didn't work. I don't know. Aside from all of that and the fact that they still couldn't really run the ball, and this wasn't even, they're not efficient, but they're explosive. No, there was none of that. What stuck out to you as far as the plan, or you could go dive into some player stuff?
Let's just dive into some player stuff because I think you handled that pretty good there. Yeah. Look at that. See, I miss you, man. I miss you. Like, it's a lot has happened since you've been gone. You had a baby, or your wife had a baby. You played some sort of role in this. I had a root canal. Like, there's stuff that's happened. They won 2 games while you were gone. Like,
is that better, by the way?
It's interesting. I find myself constantly sort of, it doesn't hurt as much anymore, so that's a good thing. But yeah, I don't recommend that for anybody. Ramondre Stevenson, where you were just talking about run game, very in his return. And I thought, whatever, you missed some time, so you're going to feel your way back. I thought he actually had some problems identifying where pressure was coming from, and that's obviously been a strength of his in pass protection. And I would expect he was good at it before. I expect he'll get back to that level, but I just didn't think it was very good in the game. And Vidarian Lowe, who we mentioned off the top, who got the 30 snaps in place of Will Campbell. I charted it today for Boston Sports Journal. It was okay. I mean, it wasn't great. It was okay. Like, and he became such a whipping boy last year that he was bad. But there were games where he wasn't, where he was like, okay, that's a workable piece on an offensive line. Not a starter, but if I had to be playing for a game or two, as we talk about with backups, like, I could live with that. And I thought that's what you got from him yesterday was I can live with that. It's not going to be perfect. There's some limitations there, but it was good enough that I'm not like, oh my God, we got to scrap the whole offense. And it was okay.
Yeah, Stevenson was the last note I had on my film review tomorrow for the Herald. He had 22 snaps to Henderson's 46, I think it was. Yep. And just little juice. And he didn't have a whole lot of rushing lanes, but the things that you're out there for. And Cincinnati, Geno Stone specifically would move after, Stevenson declares like, okay, he's got the A gap. And of course, they're always working inside out. but that allowed for a lot of overload pressure, which again, things that teams might copy, even from the worst defense and not a great coaching staff in the league, is interesting. You want more from Stevenson. I give him a little bit of the benefit of the doubt.
As do I.
If we don't see it Monday night, again, another day to rest and recover, and he didn't play a whole lot, then I'm concerned because you're going to need him. I think we should go down to the 1 yard line, though, because people have to go, what the hell happened with those 6 stops? And here's my answer. For just that one drive in the third quarter, and I know they got stopped in the QB sneak. Actually, you know what? I'm going to combine them because there were 4 rushing plays that just got stuffed at the 1. Number 1, you had missed and or poor blocks from Will Campbell, Ben Brown, Garrett Bradbury, Michael Manu, and Jack Westover. Campbell and Westover were the issues initially. Westover just not playing with enough force. For a fullback, he's had a good couple of games, but I'm now back in my original position of he's just, you know what he needs? If you're a fullback, you got to be a little effed up. You know what I mean? Like
he's not effed up. He's like a nice kid.
He's so nice and normal. Yeah. It's not just about the weightlifting and how big your traps are and could you pick me up with your pinky finger. This is like, I need you to be the front line of the old battles in medieval times. The guy screaming, running, knowing he's going to die, and I'm going to do this anyway. I don't know if that's in there.
I would say if I'm Mike Vrabel, who likes to be a bit of a motivator, I'm throwing in a freaking neck roll in his locker. I'm talking like the big one. I want like a double stack neck roll with the pad. I'm getting a visor tint. Like I'm doing all kinds of stuff. Yeah. I want him to like come out in full war paint on his face. Like, dude, you're not playing unless you do this. I need this. I need you to just eye black, like down your neck. I just, that's what I want to see. If I'm Vrabel, that's what I'm doing. Just going to poke those buttons.
If he's got an ex-girlfriend that things ended poorly with, I want all the Giants to wear like decals of the sticker or like a little patch on the shoulder. That's what I want. So he goes in and hits right there. Hopefully it doesn't get me in trouble. Anyway, so you just had missed blocks and it starts there. But when you go down towards the middle, like it was just, Bradbury and Onwenu were the issue on the tush push sneak, which happened. They just both immediately got submarined. When they don't go anywhere, neither is Drake May. Ben Brown had missed one block earlier, all of which is to say that like it's both play calling and the execution. The play calling piece was you didn't attempt the quarterback sneak in those 6 tries on the same drive in the third quarter, which is inexcusable. The last snap, though, was a run pass option, and this was on Drake. So we have mostly bad blocks, some bad play calling. Just sneak it, please. And you go 4th and goal. Why are they in a shotgun run? Which is my initial impression of like, this is stupid. Give your running back a head start. The reason was it was an RPO, and Hunter Henry was open in the right flat. And Drake just gave it to Ramondre, who had 2 unblocked rushers off each of the edge. Wasn't his fault. He gets stopped. It's over. But Drake pulled that. Henry was wide open for a touchdown. So there's a lot going on here, and it's going to get worse because now you're missing your left tackle and your left guard.
Yeah, and he could have, the heck with even throwing it, he could have probably kept it himself the way the ends crashed on that play. So, yeah, that was definitely and Vrabel talked about that. He said, he was like, yeah, we could all do a better job. And there was like this pause. That was because the question was directed about like, could Drake have done something to help you out there? And I think that was a clear in his head. Yes, on that play in particular, my guy should not have handed the ball off. He should have kept it, ran it himself, or flipped it to a wide open Hunter Henry for the touchdown.
Yeah. You'll notice I didn't mention Vidarian Lowe. I had him for 2 pressures and 16 pass blocking snaps. The one was physical. The other one I thought was a mental error. They talk all the time about inside out. And even if this was a slide protection to the right and he's the lone guy on the left, take the guy inside, even if you're playing 1-on-2, because he'll get to Drake May faster, and he did. Mike Onwenu was the only Patriots offensive lineman to play the whole game to me that had a clean sheet. Did you have the same?
From a pass protection standpoint, yes. I did.
But he was played a little high run blocking.
Yeah. He did. I thought that I'd like the way he's been playing recently and thought he'd been moving people better, and that was a little bit more of a early season Mike Onwenu. I did want to go back to the Vidarian Lowe play because I think you and I are talking about the same play where it was the second to last drive, essentially the last drive of the game before the kneel down when Drake almost got picked off. That the play where they sent, I think they blitz 8. And it was funny because I'm looking at it and going, you're trying to figure out. And I'm like, everybody went this way. And he and Hooper went out and allowed the rusher to come right off the inside where it wasn't. And I was like, the other than potentially it being Ramondre, because Ramondre ended up blocking the edge on the opposite side off the right side, but he was offset to that side anyways. Then I'm like, that's got to be Vidarian there, and I think you sort of feel the same way that that didn't make a lot of sense. You're fanning out this way, and we're going to let this guy come closer to the ball, come directly at the quarterback, and honest to God, they are lucky as hell that ball didn't get picked off. That ball had no juice on it. He threw it to the outside. I mean, what are we, a step away, maybe a step and a half away from that going in the opposite direction? I know you can say that can happen a lot, but like they were driving on the football on that play.
Yeah, they know they got lucky. That was something told directly to me today. But that's fine. It's better to be lucky than good, as they say. It's also good to be rested and not banked up and tired as they are, but this is the curse of having a week 14 bye. That's pretty much it I had offensively. Again, once Drake settled himself in, they were fine. The issues in the red zone are obviously prevalent, and you had one offensive pass interference, took another touchdown from Hunter Henry. But if you just imagine that they sneak it once, or Matt Collins isn't so obvious with that OPI, this is a 33-20 game, and we're right where we all expected to be. But these are the things, to your point of, hey, we file these away, so when the playoffs get here, if and when they get bounced, or if they fix them and they win big, this is why. The proverbial little things that like every coach and player wants to kind of sweep or mention broadly to not really mention anything specific. Because then when you ask them, okay, what are the little things? Oh, tackling, knowing time and score. I'm like, okay. But anyway, that's what the game came down to, and they were lucky and they escaped. I'm just going to make sure I don't have any other notes. We didn't talk about Henderson.
Yeah, I was about to say I had one more thing.
Oh, yeah.
So early in the year, we talked often about, was he moving too fast and not having enough patience and letting the block set up and letting that, like, just that split second more to let that hole go. And then with your speed, boom, you're going. I'm beginning to wonder about his overall vision. I don't think he sees it particularly well. And this is not because I know the aggregator, this is not a thing like he's not going to be good. I'm just telling you that I think he leaves yards on the field. I think he leaves yards on the field on the regular. I thought he left yards on the field, even with their run blocking not being great. There was one play in particular, it was around midfield, where the play was clearly blocked up to go left, and he wound it back right, and he picked up like 3 yards, but he ran into more bodies on the right side. The left side was blocked. If he bounces on the left side, he is in the secondary, and as we know, he is really fast. So bing, that's a chunk play. Instead, it turns into a 3-yarder. And when you look at the final numbers, they average 3.5 yards a carry from their running backs, I think 25 carries, 80 yards.
That sounds right.
Yeah. If you're going to be the guy who's toting the mail most often, you just got to be better. I just don't. It's not just him, but I think he's not seeing it well enough.
I think that's fair. I mean, the stats agree with you. You go to rush yards over expected, and he's near the bottom of the league, meaning, okay, when we understand where all of the defenders are and how much space you have, like on average, how do running backs do? Okay, 3 yards on this play. He's getting 2.5. And over time, that 2.5, the half yard that you're leaving 10 times a game, that's 5 yards. That's 5 yards in critical situations. It could mean the difference between 3 and 7 points. Anyway, I agree with you. I don't know how much there is to fix now. I think one of his best runs was early. It's outside zone. They're going right, and it's a simple read, and he got in there and got 9 yards. Yep. I was like, okay, here we go. Because Josh opened with a heavy run script and then went to the play action, which was just like whack-a-mole the entire rest of the game, just as much as they could. But, yeah, it's underwhelming. And it's a bummer because he showed progress. Carolina was bad. I want to say the Saints, and then they played Tennessee and came home for Cleveland. It's a good stretch for him. And then, of course, all the numbers follow after that. Again, the little things you file away, say this is improving, and then boom, he takes off in Tampa Bay. And then now we're back.
You feel like we're back to the same place.
I know. All right, that's it for offense. There's a couple of cool play designs we could get into here, but we don't have the visuals, so I'm just going to skip over it. Shout out a fake screen to Pop Douglas that instead goes to 14 yards for Hunter Henry. Very nice. Good answer versus man-to-man. Defensively, we could watch Patriots football for 10 more years. I don't think we're going to see a simpler game plan than what they had for Joe Flacco, who Mike Vrabel said. It just further evidence that what Mike Vrabel says at the podium is exactly what he thinks and how he feels. Because when he doesn't want to tell you anything, he'll say, we're not getting into that, make you feel bad about it. They played nickel basically the entire time except for situationally, meaning at the end of half and at the end of game. There was like one snap of base defense, whatever. They played zone 75% of the time. It was pretty much an even split between single high and two high. And, not a ton of match quarters, but some cover two in there. And they didn't blitz until the very last drive.
Yeah.
At all. No blitzing. You could almost hear the tire screech on Zach Core taking the defense and making a hard pivot with the game on the line going, we had 4 pressures going into the fourth quarter. We're not getting home. And then one of those plays in the last drive, as I tweeted the mention in my column, you had Anthony Jennings, Elijah Ponder, Corey Durden, and Braden Swinson as your entire pass rush because that's where we are with all the injuries. Anyway, the reason for not blitzing and the reason for playing mostly soft zone was that Joe Flacco loves to check the ball down. He's 40. He doesn't want to get hit. He just wants to take a profit and move on. Marcus Jones knew this when he had the pick 6, and that worked out really well. But when they're still going piece by piece and you give up a touchdown, you're gone. You need to force the old man to throw the ball, and it worked out for them. Though you and I agree, I think Marcus Jones still wanted in Cincinnati for 15 yards and a defensive pass interference penalty.
Yeah. I you talk about all that stuff, Andrew, and one of the things that I was thinking as I was watching it, because I'm charting the same thing, and they're a nickel. And as Chase Brown is starting to accumulate more and more yards, I'm like, okay, I understand that you are, at this point, I think down Tonga as well. Milton Williams obviously not there to start, and you don't have Jelani Tavai in the game. I'm like, but you played Jack Gibbons a fair amount. Can you don't want to go Gibbons, Ellis, Spillane out there? You don't want to try something different defensively to maybe turn this run game back into, what you've done to a bunch of teams earlier this year, which, by the way, the last couple of weeks you've not been able to do. And I think we started to see cracks in the run defense against Tampa. And I think it's kind of gotten progressively worse since. And I asked Rabel about it today, and the answer was build a wall. Build, pretty much. Yeah, well, you got to set the edge, and you got to tackle, and you got to swarm, and you got to build
the little
a wall.
things. Yeah, no.
Yeah,
it's fair. Look, I wouldn't want to give an answer on a
No. Clearly, you're not going to say like, "Hey, Eric Gregory got blown off the ball 9 times in this game." Like, not going to call the guy out like that, but like that's sort of what's going on. But I did wonder at some point, like, I know you have faith in your 4-2-5 to play against the run, but it's not working really well. Maybe mix it up.
And this is a game, we heard a lot about him afterward for personal reasons that has still not been reported, and that's more than fine.
Yes.
But Jelani Tavai would have been a big help in this game, setting the edge, because you saw Cincinnati go immediately, as we've documented after several games this year. Where's K'Lavon Chaisson?
Yep.
Oh, there he is. Okay. Run that way. And typically when you play base defense, they would take Chaisson off the field and put Tavai there. Or you could kind of flex him down if you're still in nickel, and you just take Chaisson off the field if you're still in nickel. They didn't have him. And then one of your better edge setters, believe it or not, becomes Marcus Jones, who is now playing behind a Chaisson or Elijah Ponder, who's out there. And it's just not going to get it done. Harold Landry, though, still an Iron Man, had the 1 sack. 4.8 seconds, by the way. Timed that on my phone today. Did it twice just to make sure I was right. Discovered sack. Anyway, the reason that run defense cracked, at least on Sunday, and there are a lot of smaller answers and probably some schematics, they've got a soft belly now with this defense. Milton Williams is out. Tonga, we'll see. But Corey Durden played 55% of their defensive snaps. Jeremiah Farms, who just got promoted, old friend Farms, 31%. And Eric Gregory, 28%. They all got pushed around at one time or another. And so did Christian Barmore, who, we could do this now or we could do this later, is having one of the weirder seasons I can remember. And again, I've said, it's hard to say it's underwhelming because I've never recovered from blood clots twice in the last 16 months. I don't know what's to be expected of him, what's fair and what's not. But anyway, to just resolve the run defense point, this is going to be similar to the offensive line, but better, obviously. And I think you just have to wait for the cavalry to come, because there's only so much you can do unless you want to play base. But then if you get thrown on playing base, that's giving up a 20 to 30 yard pass versus the 5 to 6 yard runs that you get dinged with in nickel.
Yeah, just so often I mentioned Gregory because once again, if you look at PFF grades, I don't know. Like, I just kept seeing the guy getting pushed out of the hole. Like, we're running at you. You're on roller skates. You're 5 yards. You're hitting linebackers. You're picking off the linebackers for us because we're pushing you back. Jeremiah Farms, we know what Jeremiah is. That's not his game. But like when he was out there, he they ran it at him, and they ran at him good. Like they didn't have the brawn to sort of hold that up. But I love the Barmore point. We might as well just get into it right now.
Well, can I give you one more? Because
go ahead.
I spent a little bit of time on this last week with Brian Barrett and didn't spend enough time. Maybe it was the episode before. Cincinnati's run game is really good per any advanced metric. You could pick one, throw a dart, and it's going to say top 5, top 7, top 8. Chase Brown's really good. There's something there, and it's not just that they're facing light boxes because you've got Jamar Chase on one side, T. Higgins on the other side. They didn't have Jamar Chase, and they still got 100 yards. The first runner against the Patriots all season, Chase Brown had over 100 rushing yards. So this is a good run offense. And frankly, by the way, it's okay. Like the standard here is obviously not perfection. It's not even like your typically great team to make a deep playoff run. Okay, the Patriots run defense cracked. Fine. There are so many teams that have even won the Super Bowl with crappy run defenses. If you just need to get by, I would much rather have Christian Gonzalez and Christian Barmore, who we will now talk about, get back to peak form than I would worry about, now they're giving up 4.8 yards per carry. You stand tall in the red zone, I don't care. Red zone, obviously an issue, bad example. Right. But my point is, this is, in today's NFL, not going to kill you. You just have to manage it. So, all right, Barmore.
I like the way you described it because it's been a weird season. Like slow start, but not terrible, and you understood it, right? Because as you just said, coming back from blood clot, who knows? They managed him all summer long, as they should, which I assume is part of the whole plan of keeping him healthy, the important health going forward. And then he had a 4 or 5 game stretch in there, Andrew, where, that's the guy. That's 2023 Christian Barmore. That's the guy you wrote the big check to and said, here's the most guaranteed money of a player we've drafted since Tom Brady. Like, you get that. You deserve that. This is what we're doing. And then we had the weird 1 quarter absence in the Atlanta game. To his credit, he came out like a bat out of hell when he was removed, put back in the game, removed off the bench, put back in the game. Single-handedly ruined an entire drive in that game all by himself. It was like he made the play on first down, second down, third down. That's that. And then since, back to sort of what we saw at the beginning where, last week he got his first sack, and it was, a great moment for him because it's obviously the first one since the blood clots, and get him back in there. And I'm like, he didn't play very well. And he didn't play very well yesterday. And I don't know. And he was as animated this week coming into the game as I've seen him all year, because we've talked about this sort of him with the headphones on and sort of on his own program or whatever you want to call it. And this week he was chatty and zinging guys back and forth, and you felt this energy. And I talked to him briefly, and he's like, we're going to be good. We're going to do this for Milton. We're going to be good to go. Don't worry about it. I got this. And then he didn't, and they didn't, in terms of replacing Milton.
And this isn't even about Barmore specifically. Like the oddity of the season, and I got a stat here I'm going to give you in a second. What this is really about now is what this means for the whole defense, because it's late November. We know who everybody is as a team. Contender, pretender, stuck somewhere in between. The Patriots obviously need him to replace Milton Williams. But if you want to be a defense that not only continues to improve, and I asked them to flex on the Bengals, and I would say, they probably didn't, even though they gave up, I think, 13 points in this game. If you want to know why a defense, or an offense for that matter, is not there's something missing. What's going on? Why isn't the run defense as good? Why is this living up to its potential? Just ask yourself, how are the best players performing? And if the answer is not consistently to or around their typical level of play, there's the answer. It's very rarely a consistent schematic issue, which you would find and then get fixed. And sometimes it happened, but this is a well-coached team. Christian Barmore, on the other hand, has not consistently played to the level that we've seen. Again, perhaps to be excused, who knows? But here's the stat. In the last 7 weeks, how many times do you think he has had 0 QB hits?
6.
Correct. He's had 1 game in the last 7 weeks with a quarterback hit. And again, that's not a perfect stat. It doesn't capture everything. Again, you're disrupting plays and you get hurries. But it speaks to the point that we've been talking about where there's this pressure total. And you go to PFF or you go to my numbers or your numbers, whatever, cool. You will find a disproportionate amount of those pressures, even understanding you're going to have more hurries than you will hits and certainly more than sacks. It's just a very soft pressure rate. And he is, as you said, a bat out of hell a bull in a china shop when he gets going. Physical, explosive. He's just not affecting quarterbacks the way that you need as one of your best players. And now with one of your other best players sidelined for the next 3 games. That's the issue here. That's what this matters. Christian Barmore is not a bellwether for the whole defense, but him combined with Christian Gonzalez and pick, I don't know, Robert Spillane or Carlton Davis, the 3 of them combined, absolutely. And if they're not all up to snuff, well, why do you think the defense would be?
Seeing as you mentioned him, how do you feel about Christian Gonzalez and how he's playing?
Well, can we do a positive one first? Because there's one guy in there who just made my night after the game. Carlton Davis, okay? That man, how about this first stat? Doubled his pass breakup total for the season on that last drive.
Yeah.
He came into Sunday with 3 pass breakups, and I'm writing in my 53 thoughts on 53 players. It's not like underwhelming, but it's close. He's got 6 now, and that kept them alive on that last drive. Where granted, okay, you can say, oh, he's only Giardi so-and-so or Mitchell Tinsley or whatever. Mitchell Tinsley scored a touchdown on Christian Gonzalez, by the way. We'll get to in a second. And then Carlton Davis tells Doug, and I don't know who else was there because Doug sent me the quote and I write it up and, we work on this together, teamwork. He's like, that DPI called against me diving to stop a play from T. Higgins was BS. And he did not stop there. He goes on to say and explain that there is this conspiracy of all of the teams and all of the players telling the refs, hey, watch 7. Watch 7 was the quote. And it made him mad as fuck. All due respect to everyone now driving around with kids that are much older than mine who can understand what I just said. But the point is, he goes on to explain that penalty supposedly motivated him to untold levels of fury and football focus, that he shuts down everyone across from him and, again, doubles his season total of pass breakups because of that penalty. So shout out to Carlton Davis, who, again, Doug tweeted the quote. I posted the story. He quote bylined it, just whatever. That's what he said. And had a lot of big plays down the stretch. You love to see that from he's not a loudmouth, but talkative number 2 corner that you signed to make those plays this offseason.
Yeah, and we got to talk to him again today. They make a couple players available on Mondays on a normal week, and he came and he was waxing poetic today. He's best. It was a PG-13 version of his quotes, but like he did say, like, it made me mad. Like, and I look around and they're in field goal range. They're in the red zone.
Yes.
They end up scoring a touchdown to play later. He's like, I put us in this spot, basically, is what he's saying, even though, as he's clearly stating, the referees helped put him in that spot. But it was like, I was mad. I had to make up for it. And he did. And as I write for tomorrow's musings, maybe we ought to get Carlton Davis mad more often. Again, Mike Vrabel, maybe you ought to find little things that you want to push to get Carlton pissed off, because pissed off Carlton was like, that was Carlton in his prime right there. There's some big plays.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to find this quote because there's one more piece of this. He went in on T. Higgins a little bit, which, again, this is not like, oh my God, give us the quote. It's like he went in and explained exactly why he was mad. Again, all right, we're going to tone this down a little bit. That ish was BS because he's talking about T. Higgins is a bigger receiver first and foremost, and he's a physical receiver. And if you ever watch his film, when he's on a go ball, he's constantly trying to create slight separation. So I could turn around and play the ball, but once you turn around, that's his ish. As soon as you turn around, he'll give you a little nudge, and now you're out of range of the ball. So I just played through the hands. He was tugging, and I just, boom, played physical. And then he goes on to say, like, oh, these referees and these teams are telling the refs, oh, watch 7. Oh, you're doing good, but watch this, don't do that. Anyway, just a great quote. Explain just the raw honesty. That's what it is. We're gonna deal with you a lot. Tell me what's on your mind. If you don't want to, fine. But when you do, let it out.
And he's not wrong about Higgins. Like, I remember we had the conversation about Higgins and should the Patriots get him and all these different things. And it's like, Higgins is not this separator like some other guys. He separates with physicality, and it's smart though. Like, the moment you turn your head up, I give you a little chicken wing, I give you a little arm and a little elbow, a little slight push around the hip, and the next thing you know, I've got that extra whatever foot to make the play.
I think we hit on most of my notes. You mentioned Jack Gibbons, really good game, involved in both of their run stuffs, strong instincts. Christian Ellis doing the opposite. He missed a couple of games back from injury. Is what it is. That's the trade-off here. You want Ellis, you got the athleticism to go sideline to sideline. Gibbons is going to be typically ahead of the play, but sometimes can't catch up. Marcus Jones, we already hit on jumping that flat throw. Flacco was going to check it down. He went, Flacco did like a little, like pat the ball, like, burp the baby kind of thing, but didn't want to throw it. And then he did. And I think that pause gave Marcus Jones time to go jump the throw, but he still flew in there like he was late to class and picked that ball off. And I was sitting on the couch and texted you after. I was like, oh, just if like I was glad I wasn't in a press box at that moment because there's, no cheering, no nothing. It wasn't cheering. It was just like I couldn't believe how fast he got there and how fast he kept going because it was the cleanest pick six I've seen in a long, long time.
And you're leaving out the point that I texted you where I said to my son, who happened to be watching the game, I go, boy, I feel an interception coming.
Boy.
And then literally 10 seconds later, Marcus has got the ball running in the end zone. I'm like, sometimes, you just, you watch things, you see things, it happen.
All right, Christian Gonzalez, you tell me.
So look, we have this conversation all the time. The other guys get paid too. I've never been one who says your number one corner should never give up catches. I remember the crying about Stephon Gilmore getting beat by Devontae Parker 5 times or 7 times in the regular season finale of Tom Brady's final year in Foxborough, including gave up a couple touchdowns. And it was like, oh, he's washed. He's not that. The other guys are good too. Like that. I don't care who you are. Surtain won Defensive Player of the Year, as Gilmore did years prior. They still give up catches. It still happens. Occasionally you do give up a touchdown. It happens. What you don't do is give up touchdowns to Mitchell Tinsley in a 10-point game that then became a 3-point game where you're playing impress and you literally don't get a finger on the guy. Mitchell Tinsley had some nice highlights in the preseason. He's Mitchell Tinsley that nobody really knows for a reason. He's a guy. He's just a guy. And I think there have been too many inconsistent moments from Christian this year. And I'm throwing away the return from the hamstring. I think the 3 games, you come back, we don't know if he was 100%. You got to feel this whole process out. He didn't do anything essentially for what? 6-7 weeks, whatever it was. Like, but I don't know that he's ever really, I think he's had one like game where we're like, oh, that looks like Christian Gonzalez. That looks like the guy I saw last year. That looks like the all-pro caliber player. I don't think we've seen that on a consistent basis. And to your point about the best players have to play their best ball, if they're going to, if the things that have changed now for this team and the expectations have changed, he's going to have to deliver and be a legit number one. You don't want to throw the ball in that direction cornerback, and that's not what he is right now.
I'll be quick. He's been fine.
Right.
He's not been as good as he was last year when he was. We say it's second team all pro. There's one all pro team.
I know.
Like it's basically receiving votes and then you parse it out, which is not to knock it. You finished third. Okay. That's still bronze. That's still, you name 2 corners, third guy. That was Christian Gonzalez. He was excellent. Should have made the Pro Bowl. Didn't. I don't know if he should make the Pro Bowl this year. Not that the Pro Bowl is the be all end all. It's certainly not. It's a popularity contest. It's never mattered less. But the historical precedent of the caliber of players that are going there based on just his play this season doesn't have a pick. We're watching plays like that. There are moments like I think the Buffalo game would be my counter where especially that last pass breakup, he's just out there chasing, and then falls off his assignment in the last play to break up a pass for Khalil Shakir before Buffalo kicks a field goal. But there are moments, and he's still high in the pass breakups, and some of the advanced metrics are good, but they're not great. They're not what you expected from this unbelievable athlete, natural corner, studious, matchup with anybody. It's just not there. It's not the same level of play. Maybe he gets there, but I'm with you. I also have 15 minutes before I have to go. So do you want to fly through a couple of these?
Let's
okay. Studs. I have Hunter Henry, Carlton Davis, Marcus Jones. That was it.
Yeah, that's the very 3 names that I had on my list. No disagreement there. You could throw, and you know how I hate this, Borregales.
Oh, no, that's a great one. It's a great one. Glad you brought it up.
Like, I was ready to shoot him to the moon after week 2, and they stuck with him, gave him a game ball, and he's rewarded them. He's missed one field goal attempt since then.
Yep, since the opener. He's also made all of his 50-yard field goals this year. All three of them, Miami, Buffalo, and Cincinnati, in the clutch, meaning last, I think, 2 minutes, if not 3. Like, that's time
No
and place.
no doubters, too. Like, just he nailed it.
Duds?
So I just generally put run D and run offense. I think both of them were struggling, but if you want to be specific, I thought Gregory really struggled in limited reps. I mean, again, he's a backup, but I just saw him get moved around. I thought Jeremiah Farms got moved around quite a bit. I think Corey Durden, who's had a really nice year, was a little bit out over his skis in this game as well. From the run offense perspective, Bradbury, Ben Brown wasn't great.
Yeah, it's broad brushing, but the run blocking and run defense is just what it is. We could do coaches, but I don't know. Like, it just, I think we all know what happened and why it did. And it's late and they're tired and they're banged up. But it's not an excuse. It's just what it is. All right, this is the point where things start to enter my brain and fly out. So we really got to wrap here because I had something that was going along with the duds. And now I'm going to put myself in the dud category for just having a thought I couldn't hold on to for a split second. Okay, we have Dad Pod and Okay, Let Me Have It. Since we just talked about him, I'm going to lead off with Okay, Let Me Have It.
Yeah.
Say the name of the player who wears the number 0 for the Patriots. So just say his name.
Christian Gonzalez.
What's the last name?
Gonzalez.
There's something there that's irritating me. And for the folks who are new, this is a segment where Mike just has to listen to me bitch about him to his face. And then once I'm done, it's his turn to pull something that I said that he didn't like from earlier in the episode. It feels like that should be an umlaut over the A or something going on. The way that you say it is just a little bit different. Christian Gonzalez. Gonzalez is a common enough name. I think we understand how it's said. You want to add in an AE or whatever it's called in there. I don't know. Gonzalez.
You got someone in the chat who agrees.
Yeah.
Well, I'm right. You guys, get your ears fixed.
Yeah. All right. Let me have it.
I have literally been staring at this off and on throughout the program. It's the hair. Just a little bit of fuzz. Yeah. You tilt your head, right? I'm like, look, I get the baby. I get you're out. Let's take care of it. That's all. That's all I'm saying. Just present yourself. I don't mind the beard. I think the beard's all right. It's what's going on up there. It's bugging me.
You're right. I'm going to wake up at 5 a.m. tomorrow so I can drive to Waltham in 98.5 and do my 1 hour and then drive back to Connecticut.
Oh,
where I'm at my in-laws. And I'm going to shave my head at 5 a.m. before I go because the YouTube folks deserve a better version than the folks on YouTube are getting right now.
Right. They expect a certain level from you, Andrew. That's all.
Yeah. All right. 10 minutes. And we got mailbag questions. We got some good ones this week. Dad Pod. So this is the segment where I'm just going to tell you, not the horrible stories, but I'm learning. My daughter's 16 days today. I have a little alarm that goes off every day at the exact time she was born as a reminder, because this is the best thing that's ever happened to me. But I think right now, I don't remember the Christmas movie because I've never seen it, but I know there's a thing where if you say the person's name or a word 3 times, they appear, right? Night before Christmas, something like that.
Yeah, isn't it Beetlejuice?
Beetlejuice, yes. Yeah, okay. Thank you. I was like, they just did this last year and I never saw it. And TJ Bean drew a picture of Beetlejuice on BST once and we showed it and I didn't know what was happening. If you said blowout 3 times in a row right now, I think I would appear. Wherever you are and you need something cleaned or changed, I'm there. Because my daughter waits for when I get home, waits for when I wake up, when it's my shift, because I'm doing the 9 p.m. to the 3 a.m. splitting with my mother-in-law, who continues to be a saint. Again, I'm in her basement talking about sports, have been, and sitting here writing all day. She just waits every single time. And then last night, again, when I start my shift, watching Sunday Night Football, I finished writing a column, a couple of posts in the Herald, and talk with Doug. What are we going to do tomorrow? This and that. So 10 minutes go by, feed her a bottle, and I'm just talking to her because our pediatrician says, just keep talking to them. Sooner they'll learn language. Got Rams Bucks on. My father-in-law's there. Go look down, and she's eyes closed, very content. She's fed. I think the Rams are the best team in football. And no sooner do I finish the word football does she, like she was auditioning for a remake of The Exorcist. Just the bottle spit straight back at me, all over my shirt. Like she was also this closet 49ers fan who was really upset with my praise for the Rams. And And then we just sat in her spit up and watched the rest of football. No, I changed and we're all good. And then I don't even think I watched the second half of that game. I couldn't tell you what I did. But that's my dad pod for the week.
So my 22-year-old and 19-year-old are back for Thanksgiving, which is very excited to have those two knuckleheads back in the house. I don't have any throw up stories, at least not yet. My son, who
wait
knows?
till Wednesday night. That is your high school friend.
Although he's got to go to his grandparents' house on Thursday. Yeah, you can't. You got to be careful there. But
let me tell you, as someone who was 22 or 19 more recently than you, it does not matter. I will be going out, and yeah.
So I haven't had to deal with that just yet. So, and if I do, I'm going to be pretty annoyed at either one of them if there's any sort of vomiting issues. I will say, so you get the blowout thing, and I texted you this. You don't even know. You don't even know what it's going to be like when you start feeding them real food. When you get the little Gerber baby thing, and you give them, because you got to try. You got to sample all these different things. They did the ground up chicken and the pork and all these different things. When they start eating it, and then they crap it out, and you get the aromatic blueberries along with the aromatic poop, and they're all one, and it's just gonna be. There was a few years that I didn't look at blueberries the same way anymore. I'm like, I don't think I can do this. I don't think I can have a blueberry. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, my sister has a 1-year-old and she's eating solids. And we're gonna get to your mailbag questions here in a second. And I get the same thing. I'm like, I don't know. Like it's not so bad. It's just that the timing is comedic, in the way that I'd be like, oh, is she kicking yet? And I asked my wife, who's not thrilled about people just like putting hands in her stomach when she was pregnant. My daughter would always stop. Dad got no kicks, and now he gets all of the dirty diapers. So anyway, I love my daughter. All right, we are pulling questions from Twitter and Blue Sky. We used to do this live, but this is always the end of the episode, so I'm going to go rapid fire here with a couple of them. Kyle Marsden, who won, I think, a raffle that we did for tickets or some donation in charity. And we're going to bring back Mail Fan, by the way, for later in the week. Or not this week, but later in the season. Anyway, Kyle asks, first off, how far down did you sink in your chair when Vrabel thanked the media for mentioning injuries last week? Second, is yesterday's performance more Patriots playing with their food or a team that needs a buy soon? Again, I was disappointed. I wish Mike had just said my name because I could be wrong, and I'm not rooting to be right in this. I just think off the top of my head, I was the only one writing and asking him about it. But I didn't sink. I was like, oh, they're paying attention. They're listening. They're reading. Second, they weren't playing with their food. They're just tired, and they had a bad start, and their best players did not play their best, and that's how you get close games. So that's what it was.
What he said, Kyle.
Jordan, Patriots. Hey, Jordan's watching film too. Patriots receivers had trouble in man coverage against Cincy. Do you think it's a blip or something that other teams will copy?
Well, we talked about it. I think if you have the personnel to do it, you'd be wise to do it. If your defensive coordinator and the coaching staff they're on it, then they would do more of it, because that's an area that thus far, in the sample sizes that we've been given, the Patriots have been less efficient against.
Kenny, whose questions always indicate he's watching his film. The Patriots seemed to work more at a shotgun yesterday than normal. I can't verify this, but we'll continue. Drake does his best work under center. Again, cannot verify, but I would if I had 5 minutes. Do you think that had more to do with the injuries in the O-line? Can Drake adjust if they do need to play more from shotgun? So do you think that's a wise idea? I think that's the best way to put it. Moving forward, do you think it would be a good idea to keep Drake more in shotgun?
I think you want to continue to do what you've done best, and I would agree. I think, without having the numbers right in front of me, that he's operated very well under shotgun. And we've talked about sort of in the preseason, the play action stuff and turning his back in Minnesota. And then was like, this isn't working. We're not going to do it. Well, he quickly fixed that problem when the regular season came around. In fact, to the point where we've been crying for more play action, and they gave it to us. But I would say that what you're probably going to see is, until Drake feels comfortable with Vidarian as his left tackle, that he might be in shotgun a little bit more.
And you know what? The shotgun would also offer them the chance, which they could do in the tight red zone. We started talking about, like, hey, what are your solutions? If we just text Josh real quick or bring him in the chat, like, I'd probably go a little bit more option run game. The old saying that if you can't block them, read them, leave them unblocked, and let the quarterback make the decision. There's more risk involved in there. But if it's in a tight space, that might be the best way to kind of get numbers going the other way, or Drake around the corner if he pulls the ball. Lawrence, hey, Andrew, what can the Patriots do to help their lack of physicality? calling them out on both sides of the line of scrimmage?
I don't know. They're not from an offensive line perspective. They aren't the most physical group. It's worked. Yeah. It's worked just fine. Like it may impact sort of the level of run game that they could have or have thus far, but in general, I think they've done a pretty good job up front. I'm not going to get like crazy. I don't think they're perfect. I don't think they're a top 5 line, as some people had metrics that were backing it up just a couple of weeks ago. But I think they've been pretty good. And defensively, I think they're plenty physical. I think Harold Landry will stick his face in there. He's not the biggest guy, but he will. We certainly know that Milton Williams does it. I think a lot of the backups, the guys that we've seen, the Durdens, like they Tonga, certainly, that's a physical group. And Kayvon Chason is physical. He's not a very good run defender, but like in terms of, I don't think he shies away from contact. I think he kind of embraces it.
Yeah, he's played more with power as a pass rusher than I think ever before, and it's really, really paid off. I think where this shows up is when they go heavy on offense and bulk up an extra running back or an extra, Jack Westover's hanging out or Austin Hooper's there. Those personnel packages are not efficient. That's what it is. Those are setting up explosives down the field when they're running play action. So you'd wish they would play with a little bit more force and verve. It's not effort, but just some push. And their guys aren't doing it.
That's a personnel decision, right?
Right.
You made a choice that like we're not going to get a real fullback. We're going to turn Westover into the jack of all trades. We're going to live with
another pun.
Yeah,
that's another pun by you.
Look at me. We're going to live with Hunter and Hooper because they're really good receivers and trustworthy players, even though as run blockers, they've never been plus run blockers.
So the end of that point is just to say offensively, like I don't think there's anything there. Defensively, though, I'm not concerned either. Like you could play with more base, and I think those are violent young D tackles who just kind of get moved around. So it's the answer is rest. I think a reset would do everyone wonders, especially Landry, who is sticking his nose in there. But again, his one sack, the only sack the Patriots had, took 4.8 seconds. So rest, played less with big personnel on offense and a little bit more on defense. Ron Veer, I'm just going to answer this one with Campbell out. Who plays at left tackle? I think it's Vidarian Lowe, not Marcus Bryant. Time and Tide, I'm going to answer this one too, is asking, is Terrell Williams part of the game planning during the week? Was that core? Core calls the defense, but is it input from Vrabel? So Terrell Williams is only in the building when he wants to be. That man is getting treatment for cancer. Mike Vrabel said today that he's feeling better and you have good days and bad, but his treatment, and this is as far as I can't want to go on this, really ramped up a couple of weeks ago. Yeah. So this is not when I wrote about him 2 weeks ago and how he's in meetings and giving gifts to guys who get takeaways and participating, but he's not coaching. He's not game planning. This is very much he feels better when he's there, and they feel a lot better when he's there too. And when he wants to be in the building, it's an open door. So
he's a football coach. He's devoted his whole life to the sport. Yeah. We look at it as work, and it is the long hours and all that stuff, but like being around the game, the people, that's important.
Yeah. Going to Blue Sky, option 13 is asking 3 questions. We answered one about the run D, and then we talked about Vidarian Lowe and Ben Brown. It was like iffy tape. So I think we answered 2 of them there. Let's end on this one. What is the juiciest piece of information you've ever received that you couldn't share at the time? And how hard was it to sit on that info?
This goes back a long, long time ago when John Lester was diagnosed with cancer.
Wow.
And it was like, I got the information and I was like, I'm not putting this out there for the world. Like I'll reach out to John, and if John's okay with it, then I would have gone with it. He didn't get back to me, which was understandable. And I was like, someone else, that's one of those ones where, hey, it would have been nice to have that in my breaking news resume, but that was also one. It was like, I'm okay with someone else having that. I knew what I knew. That's a very personal thing.
So this deserves a lot larger conversation about why and how you sit on certain information. And the mere fact of saying like, oh, there's stuff I know, but I can't tell you, totally defeats the purpose of the podcast and makes you understandably sound like an a-hole. I will say generally, though, it behooves reporters to keep certain information private, not that is pertinent to the news or essential to the reporting and the day-to-day of the job. If you know it and it's true, you report it. It doesn't matter. It's not about not pissing people off. If it's true, that's the only thing that matters. When you're building relationships with sources, it behooves you to show them that, like, when they say, hey, this can't be shared, or I told you this, and you didn't immediately run to Twitter, that there's some trust there. Because I want to build trust with people in my life, even separate from the job. And that's how you do it, is to share things and understand that they're going to be kept when they're asked to be kept confidential. So in the process of building trust, as I try to do with certain folks and not share certain things, like, there are tons of little details that kind of come to mind and maybe get saved for a book one day. I don't know. But we'll have more. And maybe we revisit this in a year. There was, you mentioned John Lester's sickness. I'll say this one. There's a Patriots player a couple of years ago who had an unusual sickness that I got wind of during the season. And it's a health issue, and it's not pertinent to him playing football. He wasn't playing at the time. And the story was since reported, and reporter did a wonderful job with it.
Mm-hmm.
But when you hear it, you're like, he has what?
Yeah.
So that was something. Not huge to sit on. It didn't kill me. There were other things going on, and you just wish that they'd feel better. But similar story.
Yeah. I mean, I could just remember when that, like, because it ended up coming out, I think maybe like within 6 hours of me finding out the news or something.
Mm.
And I remember having to do a sportscast with it in there. And like, I knew him, but it wasn't like we hung out or anything. We were like best friends. I covered him. We talked, but it wasn't, again, same thing. And it was just like, I remember reading it and being like oddly emotional, because it was just like, he's a young guy and you're like, God, like, that's just awful. Like that. And, you know, everything turned out great. You know, he's healthy as a horse and all that. But like when someone who's 25 years old and in the prime of their career and their prime of their life, and that hits you, you're just like, man, just awful, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Heck of a note to end on.
Yeah.
I'll say this too, that idea of like, you know, when you build trust with people, I didn't think of that. I listened to Chris Mortensen say that years ago, who said, Tony Romo told me I talk to you because you don't run with everything that I tell you. Like, that's part of just having conversations and understanding and learning. When I ask questions and they share answers about why'd you make this play call, or what are you looking for here? Like, you don't need to run with every little detail, because that's how people stop telling you things you don't understand and then get to bigger stuff down the line. Someone just said blowout, which means I have to suddenly disappear and go take off a dirty diaper. And I think it was my wife, which means I'm going to go upstairs and take care of something before it gets even bigger. So I'm really glad we're back. I am glad that the Patriots are the number 1 seed in the AFC, because earlier this week, or no, not this week. This is where I lose my mind again. Last week, I said I think they're going to clinch it. That road is obviously rockier now. Mm-hmm. They have a big game Monday night against the Giants. We will not do a live show that Monday night, because you and I deserve to sleep after that. Maybe Tuesday?
Maybe
Tuesday?
Yeah.
Okay. Either way, we'll talk. Good to see you, pal.
Good to see you too, bud.